There was a night when your body stopped before your mind did. Your thoughts were still racing, still planning, still worrying, but your muscles, your chest, your breathing, they started to slow down in a way you couldn't control. You remember that kind of exhaustion, not just the tiredness of a long day. It was that strange, heavy kind of fatigue that made even simple things feel impossible. Answering one more message, finishing one more task, going to one more meeting. From your side, it looked like weakness. From heaven's side, it was an alarm. You thought, what's wrong with me? I used to handle so much more. You compared yourself to your old version, the one that carried everything and everyone. You tried to push through it. You drank more coffee. You blamed your age, your hormones, your mood, your discipline. But in the unseen, something else was happening. Heaven was watching the way your soul was running on empty. Heaven was watching you say, I'm fine, while you were falling apart inside. Heaven was watching you carry expectations that were never yours to carry. And the exhaustion you hated so much became one of the few things that could actually slow you down. There were mornings you woke up already tired. Even after a full night of sleep, your heart felt like it had run a marathon. You stared at the ceiling and felt that heaviness in your chest. You didn't have words for it. You just knew that everything felt like too much. From your side, it looked like failure. From heaven's side, it was a redirection in progress. You thought you were losing your edge. You thought you were losing opportunities. You thought you were falling behind. But what if some of what you called falling behind was actually God pulling you out of rooms that were draining you, pulling you away from people who only loved the version of you that performed, pulling you off paths that looked impressive, but were slowly destroying your peace. Your exhaustion had a frequency. It was like a low, constant hum under everything you did. You could laugh with people, function at work, smile in public, and yet, underneath, there was this steady vibration of I can't keep going like this. You heard it in the way you sighed between tasks. You felt it in the way your shoulders never really relaxed. You saw it in the way you had no energy left for yourself after giving pieces of your soul to everyone else. Heaven heard it too. God heard the quiet frequency of your burnout long before you did. The prayers you never prayed out loud were already echoing before his throne. The way your hands shook when you were alone, the way you lost interest in things you used to love, the way you would sit in silence, staring at nothing because you had nothing left to say. From your side, it looked like you were just tired again. From heaven's side, it was a critical moment, because exhaustion is not only about lack of sleep. Sometimes it's the language your soul uses to say, you are carrying something that doesn't belong to you. Sometimes it's heaven's way of turning the volume down on everything that is not part of your real assignment. You didn't see the spiritual traffic around you. You didn't see the doors that were about to open that would have trapped you deeper into a life that wasn't truly yours. You didn't see the deals, the relationships, the paths that would have looked like upgrades but would have become prisons. So heaven began to slow you. You were frustrated when plans fell through. You felt guilty for saying no to invitations. You were ashamed of canceling, rescheduling, needing more time. You thought, I'm becoming unreliable. I'm becoming lazy. But what if, in that season, reliability to God looked like listening to your limits? What if obedience looked like stopping instead of pushing? The hidden frequency of your exhaustion was not just your body breaking down. It was your spirit trying to pull you closer to rest, closer to truth, closer to the God who never asked you to destroy yourself to prove your worth. From your side, everything felt like it was slipping out of control. From heaven's side, control was finally being taken out of the wrong hands, and in that tension between what you thought you were losing and what God was secretly protecting, a new frequency was forming inside you, one you didn't have language for yet, but heaven did. It was the beginning of redirection, and it started the moment you admitted, even just in a whisper, I can't keep living like this. You remember the season when you could do everything. You could stay up late, Wake up early, take on extra work, be there for everyone, answer every call, say yes to things you didn't even have time for, and somehow still keep functioning. People praised that version of you. You're so strong. You handle so much. I don't know how you do it. And a part of you began to quietly believe that your worth was tied to how much you could carry, how much you could endure, how much you could ignore your own needs. From your side, it looked like generosity and responsibility. From heaven's side, there were already small warning lights blinking, because every time you ignored your body's signals, every time you silenced your emotions, every time you swallowed your pain instead of bringing it to God, a little part of you went dim. You kept functioning, but you stopped feeling. You kept giving, but you stopped receiving. You kept moving, but you stopped listening. And then, slowly, the exhaustion that you brushed off as just a phase stopped being occasional and started being your normal. There were days when you sat in your car and stayed there longer than necessary. The engine off, your hands resting on the steering wheel, music playing or silence filling the space. Either way, you felt the same question inside. Why am I so tired of being me? You didn't say it out loud, but heaven heard it. When you stood in the shower, letting the water run over your face because you didn't even have the strength to cry, heaven saw you. When you laid in bed scrolling on your phone to avoid the heaviness you felt as soon as the lights went off, heaven was there. When you said, "I'm okay, just tired," for the 10th time in 1 week, heaven did not roll its eyes. Heaven leaned closer. From your side, your exhaustion felt like an accusation. You felt accused by your own limitations. You felt guilty for not being able to keep up with the version of you that everyone admired. But from heaven's side, your exhaustion was a confession. It was your life saying what your mouth didn't know how to say yet. I am not meant to carry this alone. There were opportunities you almost took in that season. A job that promised more money, but peace was missing from every email. A relationship that looked beautiful on the surface, but you always felt a strange unease after talking to them. A commitment that would have put you in the center, but would have pulled you even further away from the quiet place where God waits for you. Do you remember how, around those moments, your exhaustion would suddenly spike? How you'd feel drained just thinking about saying yes? How you'd feel your body protest when your mind tried to rationalize, "It's a good opportunity. Why do I feel so heavy?" That heaviness wasn't laziness. It was a frequency, a warning, vibrating under the surface. The Holy Spirit whispering through your nervous system, "Pay attention. You are not a machine, you are a soul." You thought you were just becoming more sensitive or weak. You told yourself, "I used to handle this easily." You almost forced yourself to move forward just to prove you still could. But there were moments, small ones, when you couldn't ignore the internal stop sign. The night you were supposed to go out, but something in you just shut down and you stayed home instead. The day you were nearly late to something important because you moved slower than usual, only to find out later that something went wrong at the exact time you would have been there. From your side, it looked like poor time management. From heaven's side, it was a strategic delay, because sometimes God will let your body be slower so your spirit can be safer. Sometimes He will allow your energy to drop so you can't keep marching into a battlefield He never asked you to enter. You kept asking, "What's wrong with me?" Heaven kept answering, "Come to me." But you were too tired to pray the way you used to, too tired to form long, eloquent sentences, too tired to keep up spiritual routines that had become more performance than connection. So your prayers became sighs, your worship became silent stares at the ceiling. Your devotion became a simple whisper, "God, I'm so tired." You didn't know it then, but those 3 words started moving things in the unseen. Because the moment you stopped pretending you were unlimited, you stepped closer to the God who actually is. The moment you admitted you were not okay, you aligned with the frequency of truth, and heaven always responds to truth. From your side, exhaustion looked like the end of your strength. From heaven's side, it was the end of an illusion. The illusion that you had to be your own savior, your own provider, your own protector, your own source. And when that illusion begins to break, it feels like collapse. But in the kingdom, it is often the beginning of a different kind of strength, one that doesn't come from you, but flows through you. There was a moment when your body did what your will refused to do. You had plans, you had responsibilities, you had a list in your mind of what a strong person would get done that day. But then the headache came out of nowhere, or the weight in your chest, or that strange dizziness that made you sit down when you were trying so hard to stand up and push through. You called it stress. You took a pill, you kept moving, but heaven knew it was deeper. Because your exhaustion wasn't just a physical condition, it was a collision between the life you were living and the life heaven was actually calling you to. From your side, it looked like your body betraying you. From heaven's side, it was your body telling the truth you didn't feel permission to say out loud. You started to notice small changes. You didn't laugh as easily. You didn't look forward to things the way you used to. You began to cancel plans more often. Not because you didn't love people, but because you had nothing left to give. People around you might have misunderstood. Some thought you were becoming distant. Some assumed you were being dramatic. Some kept asking you for more because they were used to you always saying yes. And you tried to stretch yourself one more time. You said, "It's okay, I'll manage." You squeezed one more favor into a day already full. You forced one more conversation when your soul just wanted quiet. You smiled when you wanted to disappear for a while. From your side, that looked like loyalty. From heaven's side, it looked like self-erasure. Because slowly, without noticing, you started leaving yourself behind. You left your passions on the shelf. You left your rest at the bottom of the list. You left your own heart outside the rooms where you were busy carrying everybody else's burdens. And yet, God never left you. He was there in the car when you exhaled too long, hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tight. He was there when you sat on the edge of your bed at night, feeling too wired and too exhausted at the same time. He was there when you forgot what it felt like to wake up excited about your own life. He heard the whispers you never said out loud. "I miss myself. I don't recognize me anymore." Heaven hears the frequency of that kind of exhaustion. It's the sound of a soul out of rhythm with the pace it was designed for. The sound of someone walking in obligations that feel holy on the outside, but are draining them dry on the inside. There were invitations in that season that heaven gently blocked. Messages that went unanswered. Doors that looked perfect on paper, but somehow never quite opened. People who drifted away, leaving you confused and hurt, wondering what you did wrong. From your side, it looked like rejection. From heaven's side, it was intervention. Because if every door had opened, you would have loaded even more weight onto shoulders that were already trembling. If every person had stayed, you would have kept pouring into cups that never intended to pour anything back. If every plan had worked, you would have been celebrated for a version of you that was quietly dying. So heaven started saying no in the places you kept forcing yes. Sometimes through circumstances, sometimes through delays, sometimes through a simple lack of energy so strong that you physically could not keep playing the same role. You thought, "I'm falling apart." But what if you were actually being pulled apart from what was breaking you? It's strange how mercy can feel like loss at first. You lose the old pace, you lose the old capacity, you even lose the old identity of the one who always handles everything. But in that uncomfortable empty space, heaven begins to ask you a different question. If you were not trying to impress anyone, if you were not carrying weight to earn your place, what kind of life would your soul quietly choose? You didn't know how to answer that right away. Exhaustion had been your normal for so long that peace almost felt suspicious. Rest felt lazy. Slowing down felt unsafe. Saying no felt like failure. Yet deep inside, something in you began to ache for a different rhythm. You started to crave silence more than noise, presence more than performance, depth more than constant activity. From your side, it felt like you were becoming too emotional, too sensitive, too weak. From heaven's side, you were finally becoming honest. And honesty has a frequency too. It sounds like the quiet moment when you stop pretending you're okay and simply say, even if no one hears it but God, I'm exhausted. I can't keep carrying everything, help me. That simple confession shifted something in the unseen, because heaven does not respond to the image you project. Heaven responds to the truth of your heart. You thought you were just collapsing, but in that holy collapse, God was gently rearranging the pieces of your life so that one day you would learn to live at a pace that didn't kill you slowly, but kept you close to Him. There came a point when your usual coping tricks stopped working. The distraction didn't numb you the way it used to. The busyness didn't make you feel important anymore. Even the compliments that once fueled you started to slide right off your tired heart. You were still functioning on the outside, but inside your soul was running on fumes. You scrolled more, you ate without really tasting, you watched things without really watching. You said, I just need to get through this week, and then the next week, and then the next one. But the finish line kept moving. From your side, it felt like you were stuck in an endless loop. From heaven's side, it was a divine interruption that hadn't been fully recognized yet. Because God had already been whispering to you through the very thing you were trying to escape, your exhaustion. You see, there is a difference between the tiredness that comes after obedience and the exhaustion that comes from living out of alignment. One is a good tired, like the kind you feel after loving well, after serving where God actually sent you, after pouring out from a place of grace. The other is a hollow tired, the kind that feels like you're pouring from a cracked cup, leaking at every side, never truly filling, never truly resting. You knew the difference, even if you didn't have words for it. There were rare moments, small pockets in your life when you said yes to something and felt a strange, deep peace afterward, even if it cost you energy. There were other moments when you said yes to something and felt instantly heavier, as if a weight had settled on your chest. You told yourself, it's just my mood, it's just stress, it's just me overthinking. But heaven knew. Those inner reactions were not random. They were part of the hidden frequency through which God had been speaking to your heart. Not to control you, not to scare you, but to protect you. When Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," He was not inviting you into a spiritual theory. He was inviting you into a different pace, a different way of carrying life. You heard that verse before. Maybe in church, maybe in a song, maybe in a post that you scrolled past too quickly. But in your exhaustion, those words started to sound less like poetry and more like a lifeline. Come to me. Not come when you've fixed yourself. Not come when you feel strong again. Not come when you're spiritual enough. Just come. From your side, you didn't know how. You thought coming to Him meant having long, perfect prayers. You thought it meant feeling something dramatic. You thought it meant having the right words. So you hesitated. But heaven was watching the smallest movements of your heart, the way you paused for 2 seconds before opening your phone in the morning. The way you whispered, "God, please," even if you didn't finish the sentence. The way you put on a worship song one night and let it play in the background while you sat in silence, too tired to sing along, but still choosing that atmosphere over noise. From your side, those moments looked insignificant. From heaven's side, they were seismic. Because that is how a frequency shifts. Not always with fireworks, often with small, repeated choices to lean, even slightly, in the direction of rest instead of performance. Truth instead of image, presence instead of noise. You didn't know it, but heaven was already rearranging things around you to support this shift. Certain environments became too loud for your soul. Conversations that used to energize you started to feel shallow. You found yourself craving honesty more than approval. Sometimes that honesty was messy. You snapped at people you loved because you were running on empty. You forgot things you said you'd do. You made mistakes that made you feel ashamed. You were harder on yourself in those moments than anyone else was. You spoke to your own heart in ways you would never speak to a friend. But even in your self-criticism, heaven refused to agree with the harsh words you threw at yourself. Where you said, "I'm failing," heaven said, "You are human." Where you said, "I should be stronger," heaven said, "You were never meant to do this without me." Where you said, "I'm disappointing everyone," heaven said, "You are not responsible for carrying the whole world." Your exhaustion was not proof that God had abandoned you. It was proof that you were trying to live beyond the grace you had for that season. And grace has a frequency too. It feels like this. The things God actually assigned to you will still require effort, but they won't constantly crush your spirit. They may stretch you, but they will not strip you of yourself. They may make you tired for a night, but they won't make you hate waking up to your own life. From your side, you were just trying not to fall apart. From heaven's side, God was gently, persistently inviting you into a different rhythm, one where your value is not measured by how much you carry, but by the simple fact that you are His. And every sigh, every quiet, "I can't," every small moment when your soul leaned toward Him instead of running faster, all of that was part of a hidden recalibration, tuning your heart away from survival and closer to the frequency of rest. There was a day that looked ordinary, but heaven remembers it as a turning point. You woke up exhausted before your feet even touched the floor. You stared at your phone, saw the messages, the obligations, the expectations waiting for you like a pile of weights. Something in you whispered, "I can't do this today." You argued with yourself. You thought of all the reasons you couldn't slow down. People needed you. Deadlines were coming. You didn't want to disappoint anyone. From your side, taking a step back felt irresponsible. From heaven's side, it was necessary. That day, you cancelled something, or you moved slower, or you arrived late to a place you usually reached right on time. At the time, it felt like failure. You were frustrated with your own body, annoyed at your own lack of energy. You apologized to others more than you needed to. Later, you heard something. Maybe a story about what happened on the road you usually take, at the time you are usually there. Maybe something happened at the event you were supposed to attend. Maybe there was a conflict, an argument, a situation that would have pulled you in and drained you even more. And you realized your delay placed you on a different timeline. From your side, it looked like weakness. From heaven's side, it was protection. You didn't see the angel standing between you and what could have happened. You didn't see the traffic that could have trapped you, the conversation that could have wounded you, the opportunity that could have enslaved you. You only felt tired. You only knew you could not move as fast as usual. But in the unseen, heaven was rearranging your steps to keep you from walking straight into something that would have pushed you even closer to collapse. It's not that God caused your exhaustion. A lot of it came from a long season of you pushing beyond your limits. But God did use it. He used the slowness you hated to steer you away from collisions you never saw. He used the no your body forced to protect you from saying yes to things that looked bright, but were misaligned with your soul. You thought, if I was stronger, I wouldn't have missed that. Heaven knew, if you had been stronger in the way you wanted, you might have walked right into danger. There were also relationships in that season that your exhaustion exposed. When you had energy to spare, you could carry conversations, initiate plans, hold space for everyone's emotions. But when your energy dropped, some connections quietly faded. You stopped being the one always reaching out, and suddenly the silence grew loud. From your side, it felt like people didn't really care. It hurt. It made you question your worth. From heaven's side, the truth was being revealed. The ones who loved you only for what you do, not for who you are, lost interest when you no longer played the strong one. The ones who stayed, even when you were quiet, even when you couldn't perform, even when you didn't have anything impressive to offer. Those carried a different frequency. They were not projects, they were gifts. Heaven saw how your exhaustion refined your circle. Not because God wanted you lonely, but because He wanted you honest. He wanted you surrounded by people who could handle the real you, the tired you, the healing you, the I don't have it all together you. From your side, the loneliness in that season felt like punishment. From heaven's side, it was preparation. Because God knew you were not meant to walk into your next chapter with the same expectations, the same patterns, the same unhealthy weights. Your exhaustion, as painful as it was, started to teach you something you had been ignoring for years. You are not infinite. You are not everywhere. You are not everyone's answer. And that is not failure. That is truth. You began to notice small boundaries forming in your heart. You felt a quiet no where you used to say, of course. You felt a desire to protect your mornings or your nights, or a small pocket of time where your soul could breathe. At first you felt selfish for wanting that. You almost apologized for needing space, but slowly heaven started tuning you to a different understanding of love. Love that doesn't burn you out to prove itself. Love that doesn't require you to vanish so others feel full. Love that includes you too. Your exhaustion was not the end of your usefulness. It was the end of a version of usefulness that demanded your burnout as proof. From your side, it felt like you were losing your ability to be that strong person everyone admired. From heaven's side, you were being invited to become a different kind of strong, the kind that comes from surrender, from boundaries, from resting in a God who works even when you lie down and close your eyes. And in that invisible shift, the frequency of your life was beginning to change. You may not have noticed it then, but your no was starting to protect your yes. Your slowness was starting to protect your soul. Your limits were starting to lead you toward the path you were actually created for. There came a season when your calendar started to feel like a stranger's life. You looked at your own schedule and thought, who signed me up for all of this? The answer, quietly, was you. Not because you are foolish, but because you were conditioned to equate love with overextension, purpose with overcommitment, faithfulness with self-neglect. From your side, it looked noble. From heaven's side, it looked unsustainable. So God did something you didn't recognize at first. He didn't just change your circumstances. He began changing your appetite. There were things you used to crave that suddenly lost their flavor. The rush of being busy, the thrill of being needed, the adrenaline of last-minute rescues. All of that started to feel less exciting and more exhausting. You began to feel a quiet grieving for a life you were not actually living, the life where your soul had room to breathe, to think, to listen, to simply exist without performing. That grief had its own frequency. It sounded like your sigh when you finally sat down at the end of the day and realized you hadn't had a single real moment alone with your own thoughts. It looked like you staring out a window longer than usual, wondering, is this all there is? Heaven did not despise that question. God was not offended that you were tired of the way things were. In fact, He had been waiting for you to notice that your pace was not holy simply because it was busy. Do you remember the story of Elijah? Exhausted prophet, collapsed under a tree, telling God he had had enough. He wasn't disciplined. He wasn't impressive. He wasn't overflowing with faith in that moment. He was done. And what did God do? He did not yell. He did not say, pray harder, do more. He gave him food. He gave him sleep. He let him rest, not once, but twice, before speaking to him about his future. Heaven has always understood the language of exhaustion better than you think. You thought your burnout made you less spiritual, but sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to admit you're tired and let God meet you there. There were nights when you lay in bed, phone finally away, room dark and quiet, and you felt a strange mix of emptiness and presence. You didn't see an angel at the foot of your bed. You didn't hear a voice out loud. You might have even thought, I don't feel anything. But the very fact that your frantic pace was interrupted, that your body forced you to lie still, made room for something you had been missing, space for God to simply be with you without you doing anything for Him. From your side, it felt like useless time. From heaven's side, it was healing time. Because your nervous system had been living in constant alert mode, always on, always ready to respond, always braced for the next demand. That state has a frequency too. It makes you jump at every notification. It makes you flinch at silence because silence feels like failure. It makes you interpret stillness as danger. So God began to gently retrain your soul, not all at once, not in a dramatic overnight transformation, but in small, almost unnoticeable ways. A cancelled plan that gave you an evening you didn't expect to have. A moment of laughter that slipped out of you when you thought joy was gone. A quiet morning when, for some reason, you woke up a little earlier and the house was finally still. In those pockets of time, you had a choice. Fill them with more noise or let the quiet do its work. Sometimes you chose the noise, sometimes you chose the quiet. Heaven stayed either way, because this was not about you learning to rest perfectly. It was about you slowly starting to trust that God was still working even when you were not. One of the hidden frequencies of your exhaustion was this lesson. You are not the one holding everything together. You might hold a few things. You might carry responsibilities God actually gave you, but you are not the axis of the universe, not even of your own small world. And as that realization started to sink a little deeper, something shifted. Your prayers began to change. Less give me more strength so I can keep doing everything. More show me what is really mine to do and what I need to lay down. That prayer tunes your heart to a different frequency, because heaven loves to answer when you ask, Lord, what have I picked up that you never asked me to carry? The answer doesn't always come in an instant revelation. Sometimes it comes in the form of a deep unease about something you used to tolerate. Sometimes it shows up as peace when you consider letting something go. Sometimes it looks like the surprising realization that the world does not collapse when you are not available for every single thing. From your side, this process felt confusing, messy, slow. From heaven's side, it was a sacred recalibration, God gently tuning your life from the frantic frequency of survival to the steady, quiet, unrushed frequency of walking with Him. There was a day when you finally did something you had been afraid of for a long time. You stopped, not completely, not perfectly, but you paused long enough to ask a different kind of question. Not, how do I keep this going? But, should I even be carrying this in the first place? From your side, that question felt dangerous. You were afraid of what it might mean if the answer was no. Afraid of disappointing people, afraid of stepping out of roles you had used to define yourself, afraid of discovering that some things you gave your life to were never really yours. But from heaven's side, that question was holy, because when you finally asked it, you gave God permission to rearrange your priorities at the deepest level. There were commitments that had become part of your identity. I'm the reliable one. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who holds this together. But exhaustion had exposed the cost of those titles. You were reliable, but not to your own soul. You were strong, but mostly at ignoring your pain. You held things together, but pieces of you were breaking silently in places no one saw. Heaven had not called you to live that way. So slowly, God began to lead you into conversations you didn't want to have. You remember them. The conversation where you said, I can't do this anymore at the same pace. The message where you admitted, I need to step back. The moment you finally told someone, I'm more tired than I've been letting on. Your voice shook, your heart raced. You almost took the words back, but you didn't. From your side, you felt selfish, dramatic, weak. From heaven's side, you were finally aligning your outer life with your inner truth. That alignment has a frequency of its own. It sounds like honesty. It feels like a deep, if unfamiliar, relief. You might not have noticed it right away, but after some of those conversations, you slept differently. Maybe not perfectly, but there were nights when you closed your eyes and felt even a small percentage less burdened. Heaven saw that. God watched as layers of false responsibility began to slide off your shoulders. He watched the tension in your jaw soften just a little. He watched you take one unhurried breath that reached deeper into your lungs than usual. That breath mattered. because for a long time your breathing had matched your life. Shallow, rapid, never fully exhaling, never fully letting go. Now, in the quiet, your body was starting to learn what your spirit was just beginning to trust. You do not have to live on constant alert to be safe. You do not have to outrun collapse to remain loved. You started to notice other changes too. You found yourself saying no to something that would have impressed people but didn't sit right in your spirit. You chose a slower path, even when a faster one looked more successful. You walked away from a conversation that was pulling you back into old patterns of guilt and pressure. From your side, these choices looked small. They didn't make headlines. No one threw a celebration. But in the unseen, heaven was applauding. Because every time you honored the limits God built into your humanity, you were rejecting a lie that had worn you out for years. The lie that you must be superhuman to be valuable. You were not made to be superhuman. You were made to be His. And being His comes with a different rhythm. It's the rhythm of Jesus, who could heal crowds and still walk away to pray, who could be surrounded by needs and still rest in a boat, who could say no to people's timing and yes to the Father's. You had read those stories before, but now, in the middle of your own burnout, they began to mean something different. You saw that even Jesus, carrying the weight of redemption, did not live in constant rush. If He didn't, why should you? That realization did not instantly erase your exhaustion. Your body and nervous system needed time. Your habits needed time. Your relationships needed time to adjust. Some people didn't understand. They were used to the version of you who never said no, who never needed space. Your boundaries felt like rejection to them. They pulled back. They questioned you. That hurt. From your side, it felt like you were paying a price for choosing health. From heaven's side, it was pruning, not punishment, preparation, because God was guarding the ground of this new season. He was clearing space for a different kind of life to grow, one where your soul isn't an afterthought, where your rest is not guilt-soaked, where your yes comes from peace, not pressure. In the early days of this shift, you still felt fragile. Some mornings you woke up hopeful. Other mornings you woke up with the old heaviness sitting on your chest. You wondered, am I really changing or am I just pretending again? Heaven was not anxious about your pace. God was not disappointed when you slipped back into old patterns for a day or a week. He stayed. He kept whispering. He kept giving you small chances to choose rest over performance, truth over image, peace over people-pleasing. And every time you chose even slightly in the direction of rest, even if you stumbled, your heart tuned a little more to that hidden frequency He had been inviting you into all along. The frequency where exhaustion is no longer your permanent address, but a signal, a warning light, a reminder to turn back toward the one who carries you when you are too tired to carry yourself. Then, something began to happen that you didn't expect. Slowly, without a big announcement, your exhaustion started to tell you the truth before everything else did. You could walk into a room and feel your energy drop for no obvious reason. You could read a message and sense that familiar heaviness before your mind had time to explain it away. You could look at a plan on your calendar and feel your whole body tighten at the thought of going. Before, you would override those signals. You'd say, "It's fine, I'll push through." You'd silence your own discomfort in the name of being strong, faithful, committed. But now you started to pause. You began to ask, is this discomfort just fear? Or is it heaven saying, this is not for you? From your side, that kind of discernment felt new, almost fragile. You didn't fully trust it yet. From heaven's side, it was maturity. Because the same nervous system that had once sounded the alarm through burnout and collapse was now learning to speak sooner, not only when you were at the edge, but when you were at the beginning of something that would lead you there. There were opportunities in this new season that looked like answers to old prayers. More money, more visibility, more responsibility. The kind of things you might have jumped at before. You brought them to God with a different heart this time. Dear Lord, make this happen no matter what. But Lord, if this will cost me the peace you're teaching me to live in, I don't want it. Even if it looks like an upgrade, if it's going to drag me back into the frequency of burnout, close the door. That prayer sounded risky, even to your own ears. You felt the fear. What if I miss something good? But beneath that fear was a deeper trust that had been forged in the long nights of exhaustion. The trust that God was not trying to sabotage your future, but to protect it. Some doors closed, emails went unanswered, plans fell through, people who once promised you everything went silent. From your side, it might have looked like you were being forgotten. From heaven's side, those were blocked exits toward a life that would have stolen your rest, your joy, your closeness with God. At the same time, other doors opened quietly. A smaller opportunity that didn't look impressive but gave you more margin. A shift in your work that allowed you to breathe between tasks. A conversation that led to a new path where you could honor God and also honor your own limits. These didn't come with neon signs. There were no trumpets in the sky. Just a subtle, steady sense of, this fits. You still had to work. You still had responsibilities. God did not call you into a life of passivity, but the work began to feel different. The assignments that were truly yours still made you tired sometimes, but it was a clean tired. The kind that lets you sleep at night, not the kind that keeps you staring at the ceiling with a knot in your chest. Heaven watched as your definition of prosperity shifted. Before, it was mostly about more income, more opportunities, more open doors. Now, it began to sound more like this. Prosperity is having what you need to walk in what God actually called you to, without losing your soul in the process. Prosperity is waking up without constant dread. It is having enough energy to love the people God gave you, not just serve strangers from a distance. It is having room in your mind to hear the gentle whisper of the Spirit instead of only the urgent scream of the next task. That shift in definition was not just philosophy. It tuned your heart to a different frequency of provision. You began to notice provision in places you had ignored before. The friend who listened when you needed to speak and refused to let you minimize your pain. The unexpected day off. The bill that was lower than you feared. The moment when someone said, "I've got this part, rest," and you actually let them. From your side, these looked like small coincidences. From heaven's side, they were notes in a song, a melody of care, composed for you in the middle of your recovery. You didn't see the angels moving around your timeline, but they were there, standing between you and the unnecessary obligations you almost accepted, gently closing paths that would have led you deeper into exhaustion. Whispering peace when you chose the slower route, the quieter commitment, the less impressive yes that left you room to breathe and room to be with God. There were evenings when you sat in your home, not rushing, not performing, and you felt something you hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness without panic. You didn't fully know what to do with it at first. Part of you wanted to fill it with distractions, but another part of you, the part heaven had been rescuing through all this, just wanted to sit and be. In that simple being, your heart was learning the frequency of rest in God. Not rest as in do nothing forever. Rest as in move at the speed of grace for this season of your life. You began to sense that your exhaustion had not been the enemy, but the final alarm that forced you to confront the way you were living. It had driven you to a crossroads. Keep pretending you are limitless, or admit you are human, and let God be God. In choosing the second again and again imperfectly, with some stumbles along the way, you stepped into something heaven had been preparing long before you knew you needed it. A life where your assignments and your capacity are not at war, but in conversation, where your yes echoes his heart, and your no honors the temple he gave you to live in. There will still be days when the old exhaustion tries to visit. You will wake up heavy sometimes. You will feel that familiar fog settle over your mind. You will notice your patience thinner, your emotions closer to the surface, your capacity smaller than you wish it were. From your side, you might be tempted to panic. To think I was changing, and here I am again. But from heaven's side, this is not proof that you've gone back to zero. This time, you are different. You have language you didn't have before. You have awareness you didn't carry before. You have history with God in your exhaustion now. Memories of nights He kept you, moments He redirected you, doors He closed to protect you, breaths He deepened when you thought you couldn't take another step. So when the tiredness comes, you don't just push blindly. You pause and ask, what is this tiredness saying? Is it the normal fatigue of a full day lived in obedience? Or is it the warning bell of old patterns trying to sneak back in? People-pleasing, overcommitment, ignoring the signals of your own soul. You begin to treat your exhaustion not as your identity, but as information. You no longer hear, I am weak, I am a failure. You begin to hear, my soul is speaking, my body is telling me something. Holy Spirit, what are you showing me? That shift alone carries a different frequency, because now, instead of despising your limits, you invite God into them. On the days when you feel that familiar heaviness, you may not be able to change all your circumstances at once, but you can choose a different posture. You can choose to speak to yourself with the same gentleness heaven uses when speaking to you. Instead of, get it together, you're pathetic, you can learn to say, I am tired. God, be my strength. Show me what truly needs to be done today and what I can release back into your hands. Heaven hears that prayer. It is not less powerful because your voice is shaky or your faith feels small. In fact, those are often the prayers that cut through the noise the most, the ones that come from the end of yourself, where pride has nothing left to prove and you're simply honest. There will be moments when you feel the pull to go back to the old pace. An opportunity comes. A request lands in your inbox. A need presents itself that looks urgent, that triggers the old reflex in you to rush in, fix it, carry it all. In those moments, you will feel the tension. The old you says, if I don't do it, no one will. The new you, the one God has been forming in the quiet of your exhaustion, whispers, ask first. Ask, Lord, is this mine? Not everything you notice is your assignment. Not every need in front of you is your burden to carry. Not every open door is an invitation from heaven. You start to realize that obedience is not measured by how much you do, but by how aligned you are with what God is actually saying. And when He says no, or not now, or let someone else carry this, that is not a rejection of your value. It is protection for your soul. Heaven sent you help, even in practical ways. People who can share the load, resources you didn't have before, wisdom you have learned from walking through this valley. You are not the same person who first collapsed under the weight of constant overextension. You carry scars, yes, but those scars hold stories. Stories of how God met you under your tree like Elijah, fed you when you felt done, let you sleep when you wanted to disappear, and still spoke purpose over your life after your breakdown moments. He did not stamp disqualified over your exhaustion. He wrote seen, held, in process. And in the unseen, angels have walked with you through all of it. They were there when you drove home too tired to remember the last few turns, but somehow arrived safely. They were there when you said no to the event, the relationship, the commitment that would have drained you dry. They were there when you lay in bed, too empty to pray, and still protection covered your room like a soft, invisible shield. You were never unguarded, even when you felt undone. The hidden frequency of your exhaustion has become, in this new season, a guidance system. It alerts you when you start drifting back into patterns that hurt you. It draws you back to the quiet with God when the noise gets too loud. It reminds you that you are dust and breath, not a machine, but a beloved human made to walk with God, not run ahead of Him. From your side, you may still have days when you wish you were stronger, where stronger means able to ignore all of this again. From heaven's side, God is glad that you cannot go back to that numbness, Because feeling your limits, as uncomfortable as it is part of feeling alive, and feeling alive is part of walking in the rhythm you were created for. Not the rhythm of constant burnout, but the quiet, steady, Christ-centered frequency of a life carried more by His strength than by your own. One day you will look back on this season and realize something tender and surprising. Your exhaustion did not ruin your story. It rescued it. Not because burnout is good, it isn't, but because God, in His mercy, stepped into the middle of the life that was breaking you and refused to let that rhythm become your forever. From your side, it felt like collapse. From heaven's side, it was a turning point. You are not the same person who once believed that love meant carrying everything, that worth meant never saying no, that holiness meant destroying yourself in the name of sacrifice. Now you know better. You know that the God who knit you together did not design you to live permanently on the edge. You know that Jesus did not die and rise just so you could run yourself into the ground in His name. You know that His words, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," were not for better believers. They were for you, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. You may not have mastered this new rhythm. You will still have days when you rush ahead, days when you say yes too quickly, days when you forget to listen to the signals in your own body. But now, when the heaviness returns, you have somewhere to go besides shame. You can walk or crawl or whisper back into God's presence and say, "Lord, I feel that old exhaustion again. Help me listen. Help me honor the limits you gave me. Help me walk at the pace of your grace, not at the speed of my fear." And heaven will not answer with condemnation. The same God who met Elijah under the tree, who fed him, who let him sleep, who spoke in a gentle whisper after the fire and the earthquake, will meet you too. Not with a list of demands, but with a yoke that fits. "Take my yoke upon you," Jesus said, "and learn from me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That is the frequency He is tuning you to. Not a life without effort, not a life without responsibility, but a life where the weight you carry matches the grace you've been given, where your soul is not constantly screaming for relief under the pressure of expectations God never placed on you. You will still work, you will still love, you will still serve, but you will do it with a different center, not from a place of "I must prove I am worthy," but from a place of "I am already loved, already seen, already held." In that place, rest is not a reward for when you have done enough. Rest becomes part of your obedience, part of your worship, part of the way you say, "I trust you more than I trust my hustle. I trust your timing more than I trust my urgency. I trust your provision more than I trust my overwork." And in that trust, the frequency of your life changes. You begin to notice the presence of God, not only in the moments when you are strong, but in the moments when you finally admit you are not. You notice Him in the slow mornings, in the quiet evenings, in the holy no that protects your fragile yes. You notice Him in the angelic protection you still may never fully see, in the delays that save you, in the closed doors that seem confusing, in the opportunities that slip away, because heaven knows they would have chained you to a rhythm that isn't yours anymore. From your side, you may not always feel spectacular. You may feel ordinary, soft, more careful with your energy than you used to be. But from heaven's side, this is not regression. This is you walking step by step into a life that is actually sustainable, actually honest, actually aligned with the God who created you to be a beloved child, not a burnt-out servant. So when you feel that familiar weight on your chest again, let it be a signal, not a sentence. Let it remind you to ask different questions, to come back to the one who knows your frame, who counts your tears, who understands your nervous system better than you understand yourself. Let it draw you into the prayer He has been waiting to hear from your own lips. "Lord, tune my life to the frequency of your rest. Teach me to move at the pace of your grace. Show me what to carry and what to lay down." Heaven will answer, quietly, faithfully, in ways you may only notice when you look back. And as you keep walking, you will discover that you are not just surviving exhaustion. You are being transformed through it, led into a new way of living, a new way of listening, a new way of being with God that you may never have found if you had stayed strong enough to keep pretending. If this spoke to your heart, you don't have to rush away. You are welcome to stay close to divine frequency, to come back on the nights when your soul feels tired, on the days when you feel that weight again, on the mornings when you need to be reminded that heaven sees you, protects you, and is gently rewriting your pace. You are not alone in this. You never were. And you don't have to walk into your next chapter carrying the old rhythm that almost broke you. There is a gentler way. There is a lighter yoke. And the one who offers it has been with you in every exhausted breath, leading you, even through burnout, back into the arms of rest.